My name is Dr. Eschelle Gilkey. I work for Tulsa Public Schools, and I've also been in education more at the public school level for about going on 30 years, not quite there. Fun fact about me is that I'm a farmer. Yes, last year I started a garden and I had at least 2 little tiny potatoes. So I've been and one of the things when I think about that is I planted the seed because I've talked about it for years and years, and I finally just planted the seed and something grew. And it was also a reminder that we have to plant the seed. Yes. And I hear that a lot from my bestie, Dr. Watkins-Babers down there, about planting the seeds and just letting things grow. It's easy for things to get stagnant. It's easy to not move and get complacent, which is something that's a process for me to continue to struggle with. And when I talk to people about that, it's the same for everyone. So by planting that seed and getting that little bit of growth, it's encouraging me now to plant even more things this summer. So we shall see.
Amen. Amen.
I'm Dwayne, Gardner, the campus director at Tulsa Tech Peoria. Yes, that's the one that got knocked down by the tornado. So for the last 2 weeks, I've slept 0. Rearranging staff. But when Dr. Watkins-Babers asked me to do this, no matter still that happened, I said yes, yes, yes. But I first want to acknowledge all the texters I see in the crowd. I see Miss Diana Martin. I see Miss Anita Carwile. I see Miss Kanisha Jones, and I see the Robert Watkins. Fun fact about me is about 6 years ago, one of my uncles in Memphis called me and said, some guys at FedEx want to get you involved in our fantasy football league. And he said, nephew, it costs a lot of money. And I said, all right. So in 6 years, I brought home 5 figures worth of money from Memphis, as well as 5 trophies.
Amen.
5 figures.
We need to get into that.
You got to convince people that you don't know what you're doing.
That's the trick cover right there.
Okay, so fun fact about me is I go by Dr. Watkins at work, and then I have a supportive husband that he's okay with me going by Watkins-Babers away from work. So, okay, all right. I know, sometimes it gets a little tricky. It's interesting, when I first got married, all the men called me Dr. Babers, and all the women called me Dr. Watkins. So what do y'all think about that?
I'm probably trying not to make it happen.
So one of my bosses, he came to my office, is doing budget season. He said, what is your name? And I said, Judge, I go by Dr. Watkins. He said, okay, because he said, I get confused on if it's Babas, the Barbers, and so they get the name wrong anyway. So I go by Dr. Watkins. Yes. Okay, let's get started. Okay, all you guys are not going to answer the same question, so that's like, thank you. Okay, let's start with Damon.
I'm not good at questions. Anyway.
You are. How does your leadership show at work when you're leading your workers? Men and women.
I'm in construction, so there's no way.
No women? You know there are women. You know in construction. But under you, you're saying there's no women.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm just doing landlord, my daughter, I hired her as my assistant. So I try to teach her by example. So she's really don't work for me because I'm doing all the work still, but she's learning. So and I'm trying to and how that's working out for her because I have a small portfolio. So, but I'm trying to get her to branch out and be a property manager for other landlords. So I'm holding her hand, supporting her, not raising my voice too much with her, but I'm pushing her out there, and throwing her in people's faces to other landlords to do this. So as far as me supporting the guys, I just by example. You know, because I get up there and do it and with a deep voice.
Loud voice?
Very loud. But yeah, I just lead by example. That's, you know, that's pretty much what I do. Like I said, I'm in construction. At home, with my female friends, it's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Support, being consistent. You know, so
Yeah.
that's how I do it.
Okay, Mr. Gardner, you just mentioned that there was a tornado that hit?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll have to start past that. So you have to learn how to pivot a lot when you're in leadership. So how do you guide your staff to understand that when things happen, it's okay to pivot, it doesn't mean you did anything wrong?
Yeah, I think so. Oops, sorry. The first thing I focused on the last 2 weeks was my stability and my mental acuity. And so I think for a leader, when you have to pivot and you expect people to follow you, you have to be sound in where you're located. And so you have to, I believe, provide transparent communication. So whatever the district let me know, all 66 of my staff knew the same thing. And sometimes if people weren't excited, I was telling people that. But it removed the ability for rumors to start or people, like naturally in our situation, people's job security is what came to mind. If we're gonna move people to other places, well, I have a job. And so I focused on being transparent. I answered the phone all night. I think one teacher called at 3 in the morning. Someone else, one of my facilities guys called at 4 in the morning. And so I think so the answer to that would be transparency and availability.
Amen.
Yes. Necessary. All right, Dr. Gilkey, how do you lead with love? This is what my motto when people come to my office, we lead with love, even though sometimes it's hard, but we do lead with love, and then my staff has to follow that same, and I deal with a lot of elected officials, so it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. So how do you lead with love when everything may not be going to the way you want it or you planned it?
Well, for starters, I try to lead with grace. I try to give grace to those that I come in contact with because we all have a story. We all can take this mic and tell our story about how we got to where we were and all of the hurdles and things that we had to overcome. And so I start by trying to look at the person as a person. I know even in Tulsa Public Schools, we all have compliance checks, right? We have tasks we have to get done, there are expectations, there's deadlines, but I try to meet the person where they are. I try to be observant and look at you and get to know you as a person. I still believe in leadership. Relationships are very, very important. You don't have to be their bestie and go out to eat with them in the evenings, but you can still acknowledge them as a person first, and then give them grace to where you would be able to lead them to that next step, that next level, or whatever that next project may be. So that's how I lead with love, is offering grace.
Okay, Dr. Wilson, how do you balance confidence and collaboration in environments where you may be the only woman taking the lead?
And kind of building on that, it's not just using confidence in being in an environment. What now?
Where you might be the only woman in a leadership role?
Oh, yeah, I spent majority of my time in very, how can I say, melanin absent environments, i.e. higher ed and administrative roles, where I have been the only, not only female, but also African-American female. And so it is showing up with, and I think many of those who know me know when I show up, and I love it was this one saying, don't allow my confidence to impact yourself, you know, or a point where you feel inferior. Because I'm gonna always do my homework. I'm gonna always be prepared, especially if I'm in rooms where I'm the only voice. But I think, but I also lead with humility. We're the sum total of our experiences, and I'm a proud graduate of McLean High School. I'm a proud person who grew up in North Tulsa. So I bring all of that to bear. So when I do speak, and oftentimes come across in a way of, you see my confidence, is because I have done the work and I understand what is taking place. So it shows up in many different ways, but it comes back to being authentic. It comes back to being transparent. Because oftentimes you go into these particular rooms, I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm gonna be the one who is going to share the information and make sure that everyone feels seen. And so it shows up in that way, but also being, I think about humility, right? We are all just one stone away from being in another place, in another environment. So I bring all that to bear when I go into those rooms. And I think about, you say the ancestors, like I bring all of that to bear when I show up. My mom was a high school graduate, but she worked as a domestic. But she poured into us and said, you can do, just like the president will put one leg on, you put your pants on one leg at a time. So they are no different than you. And so you bring all of that confidence to bear when you're going into those particular rooms.
Excuse me. And I'm a proud graduate of Boogie, Washington.
It is my responsibility as a proud Scot to allow you all to come